The German Shepherd refused to leave the overturned car, even as emergency services tried to pull him away. For 8 hours, through rain and darkness, he remained vigilant beside the crushed vehicle hidden in the ravine. When rescuers finally managed to open the wreckage, what they discovered inside left even battle-hardened first responders struggling to maintain their composure. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. The Blackridge Mountains cast long shadows across Valley County as dusk approached, their imposing silhouettes a stark reminder of nature's indifference to human vulnerability. Along Highway 47, a notorious stretch of switchbacks known locally as Devil's Spine, emergency responders gathered at a damaged guardrail, their faces grim as they peered over the edge into the steep ravine below. Captain Elena Vasquez of the Valley County Search and Rescue adjusted her tactical vest and secured her climbing harness, her movements deliberate despite 18 years of similar operations. The radio at her shoulder crackled with updates from the incident commander. A vehicle had likely gone off the road during last night's torrential rainstorm, but the depth of the ravine and the density of the forest canopy made visual confirmation from above impossible. Team 1 will rappel from this position, she instructed, addressing the 4 SAR specialists preparing their equipment beside her. Team 2 will establish a base at the lower access point and work their way up. Standard search pattern, 10-meter, spread. As the teams finalized their preparations, Elena noticed her canine partner behaving strangely. Max, a 4-year-old German Shepherd with an impeccable record in wilderness search operations, stood at the guardrail, his attention fixed on a specific section of the ravine below. His posture was rigid, ears forward, expression intensely focused, a deviation from his normal pre-search demeanor. "What is it, boy?" Elena murmured, joining him at the edge. Max remained motionless, emitting a low whine that she'd learned to recognize as significant. After 7 deployments together, Elena had developed an almost intuitive understanding of Max's behavioral cues. This wasn't excitement or anticipation, this was certainty. Before we continue with today's incredible story, drop a comment below telling us where you're watching from. If you're moved by stories of extraordinary bonds between humans and animals, hit that subscribe button. What you're about to witness demonstrates the remarkable connection that transcends language and defies explanation. Deputy Commissioner Marshall approached, consulting the topographical map on his tablet. Based on trajectory analysis and the damage to the guardrail, we've identified 3 probable impact zones. He indicated the areas on the digital map. "I want your team focusing on the southern quadrant first. Modeling suggests highest probability there." Elena glanced at Max, who remained fixated on the eastern section of the ravine, outside all 3 of the designated search areas. "Sir, Max is showing significant interest in the eastern quadrant. I'd like permission to begin our search there." Marshall frowned, glancing between the dog and his data. "The probability models are clear, Captain. The vehicle couldn't have traveled that far laterally from the point of impact. Let's stick to the evidence-based approach." "With respect, sir, Max has located 17 victims in conditions where technology and conventional methods failed. His accuracy rate exceeds our best predictive models." Elena maintained a respectful tone while standing her ground. "I'm not suggesting we abandon the designated search areas, just that we allocate resources to investigate his indication. We don't have manpower to chase hunches, Captain. Another storm system is moving in within 4 hours. We need efficient deployment of all available personnel." Marshall's tone made it clear the discussion was over. "Proceed with the assigned search grid." 20 minutes later, Elena and Max descended into the ravine via the established rappel. lines, the specialized boots of her team, finding purchase on the slick terrain. The recent rainfall had transformed the forest floor into a treacherous landscape of mud and loose stones. Massive pines filtered the fading daylight, casting the search area into premature twilight. Throughout the descent, Max's behavior grew increasingly agitated. He pulled persistently eastward, away from their assigned grid, straining against his specialized tracking harness with uncharacteristic force. Eleanor had never seen him so determined to deviate from protocol. "He's really locked onto something," observed Technician Rivera, who had worked with the K9 unit for over 5 years. "I've never seen Max this insistent." Elena checked their coordinates against the search grid on her GPS unit. They were already at the eastern boundary of their assigned area, and Max was indicating they should continue beyond it. The decision weighed heavily. Following procedure meant potentially wasting critical time if Max was right, while defying orders carried professional consequences. "Base, this is Vasquez," she said into her radio. "Max is showing strong directional. Alert eastward, beyond our assigned grid, requesting permission to follow his indication." The radio crackled. "Negative, Vasquez. 3 other teams are reporting possible debris in their sectors. Maintain your assigned grid." Elena watched Max, who had stopped pulling and now stood staring at her, his posture communicating a message she'd learned to interpret through years of partnership. His dark eyes held an almost human insistence, his entire body oriented toward the unassigned terrain. "Copy that," she responded finally. After clicking off the radio, she made a decision that ran counter to 18 years of disciplined service. "Rivera, Martinez, continue the standard search pattern through our assigned grid. Log everything properly." Rivera raised an eyebrow. "And you? Max and I are going to check something. If anyone asks, we're verifying a terrain anomaly." She unclipped the tactical radio from her vest and handed it to Rivera. "I'll keep my personal cell. Call if you find anything." "Captain, you could face suspension for this," Martinez warned, though he was already adjusting his pack to continue the official search. Elena nodded. "I know, but something's not right, and Max has earned my trust." She released tension on Max's lead, allowing him more freedom of movement. "Find them, boy. Show me." The transformation in Max was immediate. With newfound freedom, he bounded forward with purpose, pausing occasionally to ensure Elena was following, but never deviating from his chosen direction. He led her away from the designated search grid, across a small seasonal creek still swollen from recent rains, and up a game trail that wound along a ridge most rescue workers would have dismissed as too distant from the projected crash site. As they climbed, Elena recalled how Max had come into her life 4 years earlier. Unlike the department's other K9s, Max hadn't come from a specialized breeding program for working dogs. She had found him during an eviction call, a skinny, neglected dog left behind when his owners abandoned their apartment. Despite his condition, he had shown no aggression, only an unusual intelligence and focus that caught her attention. Against department policy, she had fostered him while searching for an adoptive home. During this period, she noticed his extraordinary tracking abilities during their hikes, how he could locate her hidden items with minimal training, how he seemed to understand complex instructions after a single demonstration. When she presented him for assessment to the K9 training division, the evaluators had been skeptical of his mixed background but agreed to a trial placement. Max had exceeded every expectation, completing the 18-month training program in 12 months and demonstrating abilities that veteran handlers called exceptional. In their 3 years of operational partnership, he had located missing hikers, tracked fugitives, and discovered victims in conditions that had defeated both technology and human searchers. The memory of their first major rescue remained particularly vivid. During a training exercise to maintain Max's certification, he had abruptly abandoned the practice scenario and bolted into a section of forest outside the designated area. Following him, Eleanor had discovered an elderly man with dementia who had wandered away from a nearby care facility and fallen into a ravine. The man had been missing for 38 hours, his condition critical when Max located him. "You knew then too, didn't you?" Eleanor murmured as they continued along the ridge, the light fading as evening approached. Someone who needed help was more important than following the exercise. Max paused at an overlook, his posture changing. From determined movement to focused alertness, Elena joined him, scanning the area below with her tactical flashlight. The beam cut through the growing darkness, illuminating the forest floor approximately 50 feet down a steep incline. At first, she saw nothing unusual in the beam's path. Then, as Max gave a single sharp bark, his trained alert sound, Eleanor adjusted the light's angle and caught a metallic reflection among the underbrush. Something unnatural was partially concealed beneath fallen branches and accumulated forest debris. "Good boy," she said softly, rewarding Max with a brief ear scratch, the only acknowledgement he would accept while working. They began carefully, descending the slope, using trees and exposed roots as anchors against the treacherous footing. As they drew closer, the shape became clearer. A vehicle overturned and partially crushed, its dark blue exterior now camouflaged with mud and vegetation. The car appeared to have rolled multiple times before coming to rest against a massive pine, its frame compressed to nearly half its normal height on the driver's side. The accident had likely occurred during last night's storm, meaning anyone inside had been trapped for nearly 24 hours. Eleanor immediately reached for her cell phone to call in their location, but Max's behavior stopped her. Instead of circling the vehicle as his training dictated, he moved directly to a specific section of the crushed car, the rear passenger side door, and sat down firmly, his training position for indicating a confirmed find. "Someone's in there," Elena whispered, approaching cautiously. The severity of the damage made survival seem impossible, yet Max's behavior was unmistakable. He believed someone was alive inside. Elena moved with methodical precision, years of emergency response training guiding her actions despite the unorthodox circumstances. First priority, assess the situation without creating additional risks. The vehicle lay at an awkward angle, its frame compromised but not completely collapsed. Any careless movement could potentially shift the wreckage and endanger whoever might be trapped inside. "Max, guard," she commanded softly. The German Shepherd immediately transitioned from his alert position to a protective stance, his attention never leaving the specific section of the vehicle he had identified. Elena keyed her cell phone, grateful to see 2 bars of reception despite their remote location. "This is Captain Vasquez. I've located the vehicle approximately 800 meters east of Search Grid Charlie. Position is..." She quickly consulted her GPS, providing precise coordinates. "Vehicle is severely damaged. K9 indicates possible survivor. Requesting immediate backup and medical support." Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story. "Copy that, Captain," came the response, tension evident even through the spotty connection. "How did you—" "Never mind. Priority is extraction now. Technical rescue team is being redirected. ETA 20 minutes. Medical. Standing by. Can you confirm survivor status?" Elena directed her flashlight through the shattered rear window. The beam illuminated a chaotic interior, deployed airbags, shattered glass, personal belongings strewn throughout the cabin. The front passenger compartment had been catastrophically compressed, leaving virtually no survivable space. The rear section, while severely damaged, had maintained some structural integrity. "Negative on visual confirmation," Elena reported. Vehicle damage is extensive. Driver's compartment is completely compromised. K9 is indicating the rear passenger area. Understood. Maintain position and assess if safe extraction is possible before team arrival. Commissioner Marshall is being briefed on your deviation from search parameters. The subtle pause spoke volumes about the professional consequences awaiting her, but Elena's focus remained entirely on the potential survivor. She circled the vehicle carefully, documenting the damage pattern with her phone's camera while searching for the safest approach. Max remained fixated on the rear door, occasionally pawing at the crushed metal and whining softly, behavior he displayed only when he detected live human scent. His certainty gave Elena hope, despite the devastating condition of the vehicle. The deepening darkness and intensifying rain complicated her assessment. Elena retrieved a collapsible reflector and headlamp from her pack, establishing better visibility around the wreckage. Each movement was calculated to avoid disturbing the vehicle's precarious position against the massive pine tree that had ultimately stopped its violent descent down the ravine. As she completed her preliminary assessment, Elena heard the faint but unmistakable sound of the technical rescue team making their way through the forest. Their powerful lights pierced the darkness from above as they navigated the same challenging terrain she and Max had traversed earlier. Team leader Jackson was the first to reach the scene, his expression shifting from professional focus to momentary surprise as he took in the vehicle's location. "How the hell did your dog know to look here? We're nearly half a kilometer from the probability zone." "Questions for later," Elena replied, transitioning immediately to her report. "Vehicle appears to be a 2020 Honda Civic, severely damaged from multiple rolls. Front compartment is non-survivable. Rear passenger section has maintained partial integrity. Max is indicating human presence, likely still alive based on his behavior pattern." Jackson nodded, professional respect overriding any administrative concerns about protocol violations. "Peterson, establish perimeter lighting. Sanchez, begin stabilization assessment. Riley, prepare medical staging." He turned back to Elena. "Does Max's alert suggest adult or child?" The question was relevant. K9s sometimes displayed subtly different alert patterns, depending on the age of the subject they detected. Elena observed Max for a moment before answering. "His behavior is consistent with previous child alerts. Focused, persistent, but controlled agitation." This information electrified the team's efforts. Child rescues carried particular urgency and emotional weight among first responders. The technical team worked with increased determination as they established a stable work environment around the wreckage, driving support posts to prevent further compression and setting up powerful lights that transformed the forest scene into an eerie, stark tableau of shadows and illuminated metal. Commissioner Marshall arrived as the stabilization neared completion, his expression unreadable as he approached Elena. "We'll discuss your decision to abandon your assigned search area later, Captain," he said quietly. "For now, I'm told your K9 believes there's a child in that vehicle?" "Yes, sir. Max's indication has been consistent since we located the wreckage. Given the time elapsed since the probable crash, I consider it significant that he's maintaining a live subject alert rather than a recovery indication." Marshall studied the German Shepherd, who remained focused on his task despite the increasing activity around him. "That's one remarkable animal," he conceded. "Let's hope his instincts prove correct." The technical team completed their initial stabilization within 12 minutes of arrival, a testament to their training and the gravity of a potential child rescue. Team leader Jackson approached with his assessment. "Vehicle is as stable as we can make it given the circumstances. Primary entry through the rear window offers the least structural disturbance. Medical team is prepped for immediate intervention." He glanced at Max, who had not moved from his position. If your dog is right about a survivor, after nearly 24 hours in these conditions, we'll need to work fast. Elena nodded, moving to position herself near the planned entry point. In critical extractions involving children, having a woman present often helped reduce trauma reactions. Max followed her, maintaining his vigilance despite the commotion of the rescue operation unfolding around them. As the technical team prepared to create an access point through the crushed rear window frame, Elena noticed something she had missed in her initial assessment: a child's stuffed animal, a well-worn grey elephant, lying on the forest floor, several feet from the vehicle. She retrieved it carefully, noting that despite the surrounding mud and debris, it appeared to have been placed rather than thrown clear during the accident. The rescue team paused as Riley, the medical specialist, examined the small opening they had created in the rear window frame. "I can see something," he reported, directing his light into the vehicle's interior. "There's a car seat, rear-facing, still secured to the back seat." A collective tension fell over the rescue workers as Riley adjusted his position for a better view. "I can't confirm occupant status yet. The airbags and collapsed roof are obscuring clear visual." Jackson made a quick decision. "We need to widen this access point. Hydraulic spreaders, minimal pressure, quarter-inch increments only." The specialized equipment was brought forward, and with exacting precision, the technical team began to carefully expand the opening. The vehicle groaned in protest, ice and compressed metal crackling as pressure was applied in carefully controlled bursts. Max's behavior changed subtly as the opening widened. His alert posture intensified, and he emitted a soft whine that Elena recognized from previous successful rescues. The dog sensed they were getting closer to the subject. "Hold!" Riley called suddenly, having gained a clearer view into the vehicle. "I can see the car seat more clearly now." He adjusted his light, angling it to penetrate deeper into the crushed interior. "The seat is occupied. I can see small fingers moving against the restraint." The announcement galvanized the team. "Living subject confirmed," Jackson reported into his radio. "Child, age undetermined, showing movement, continuing extraction." Elena felt a surge of vindication for trusting Max's instincts, but it was immediately overshadowed by concern for the child. After nearly 24 hours trapped in a crushed vehicle through rain and cold, their condition would be precarious at best. As the opening widened further, Riley was able to extend his arm into the vehicle, establishing first physical contact with the child. "It's a toddler," he reported. "Female, approximately 18 to 24 months. She's responsive to touch." "Can you assess vital signs?" Jackson asked, maintaining his professional demeanor despite the emotional weight of the moment. "Pulse is rapid but strong. Respiration appears normal, no visible bleeding where I can reach. She's secured in the car seat, which appears to have protected her from the crush damage." Riley's voice held controlled amazement. "This kid's a fighter!" The team continued their methodical work, widening the access point millimeter by precious millimeter, until it was finally large enough to attempt extraction of the car seat with the child still secured within it. This approach would minimize further trauma and provide the most stable transport method for the potentially injured toddler. Elena positioned herself where the child might see her as extraction began, hoping a female presence might provide some comfort. She held the stuffed elephant where it would be visible as the car seat emerged. "Extraction commencing," Jackson announced. "All personnel ready for immediate medical intervention." With painstaking care, the technical team maneuvered the car seat through the widened opening. As it cleared the vehicle frame, Elena got her first clear view of the miraculous survivor, a tiny girl with dark curls, her face tear-streaked, but her eyes alert and tracking movement. Most remarkably, despite her ordeal, she showed no signs of severe physical trauma. "Hey there, brave girl," Elena said softly, moving forward with the stuffed elephant. Look who we found waiting for you." The toddler's eyes widened at the sight of her toy, small hands reaching toward it with surprising strength. As Elena placed the elephant in her grasp, the child clutched it tightly to her chest, a single tear rolling down her cheek. Max approached cautiously, his entire demeanor changing from alert intensity to gentle curiosity. Under Elena's watchful eye, he sniffed gently at the edge of the car seat, his tail wagging softly as if acknowledging a successful mission. The medical team immediately surrounded the child, performing a more thorough assessment while keeping her secured in the protective
car seat.
"Temperature is lower than optimal, but not critical," reported the lead paramedic. "No obvious fractures or external trauma. Mild dehydration. She's in remarkably good condition, considering the circumstances." As the medical team prepared the child for transport, Commissioner Marshall approached Elena again. "The car seat saved her life," he said quietly. "But your dog found her when our entire operational model said to look elsewhere." He paused, watching as Max remained vigilant beside the rescued child. "We still haven't found any sign of the driver." Elena looked back at the crushed vehicle, the implications clear. Max indicated only one survivor. Given the damage to the driver's compartment, Marshall nodded grimly. "We'll continue the recovery operation. You should accompany the child to the medical facility. She seems to have bonded with both you and your partner." As the rescue team prepared for the challenging task of transporting the toddler up the steep terrain to the waiting ambulance, Elena found herself wondering about the circumstances that had left this child alone in the wilderness, protected only by a well-designed car seat and whatever decisions had been made in the moments before or after the crash. Max remained close to the car seat as they began the ascent, occasionally looking back at the vehicle as if troubled by unfinished business. His behavior reinforced Elena's growing certainty that there was more to this story than a simple accident. A certainty that would prove prophetic as the night's events continued to unfold. The Valley County Medical Center bustled with controlled urgency as the rescue team arrived with their tiny patient. Dr. Sophia Patel, the attending pediatric emergency physician, met them at the ambulance bay, her experienced eyes quickly assessing the situation as the paramedics transferred the car seat onto a gurney. 20-month-old female, found in vehicle wreckage approximately 24 hours post-accident, the lead paramedic reported. Mild hypothermia at 95, 8 degrees, heart rate 110, respiratory rate 22, alert and responsive at scene, no obvious external trauma, maintained in car seat for spinal precaution. Dr. Patel nodded, already guiding the gurney toward Trauma Room 2. "Warm blankets, pediatric trauma protocol. Let's get a full workup. Any information on allergies, medical history, or guardian status?" "Negative," Elena replied, keeping pace beside the gurney. "Vehicle registration is being processed. No identification was found with the child. No adult survivor was located at the scene." The doctor's expression remained professionally neutral, though her eyes revealed momentary concern at the child's circumstances. "You're the officer who found her." "My partner did," Elena corrected, glancing toward Max, who remained in the ambulance bay with another officer, department policy prohibiting K-9s from entering treatment areas unless specifically authorized. Dr. Patel's gaze softened slightly. "Well, we'll take good care of her from here. Child Protective Services has been notified and will send a representative. I'll need your contact information for the report." As medical staff swarmed efficiently around the toddler, Elena stepped back to allow them space to work. The child, remarkably calm considering her ordeal, clutched her stuffed elephant while watching the activity around her with wide, solemn eyes. When her gaze met Elena's, there was a flicker of recognition, a tenuous trust established during the rescue that tugged at Elena's professional detachment. "Captain Vasquez?" A voice from behind drew her attention. Deputy Commissioner Marshall had arrived, his expression grave. "We need to discuss developments at the scene." They moved to a quiet consultation room, adjacent to the emergency department. Marshall closed the door before speaking, his usual bureaucratic demeanor replaced by genuine concern. "The recovery team located the driver," he began without preamble. "Female, early 30s, deceased at scene. Based on preliminary examination, she didn't die immediately from the crash impact." Elena processed this information, the implications immediately clear. "She survived the initial accident." Marshall nodded. "Technical team found evidence she had extricated herself from the vehicle. There were blood traces showing she moved. Approximately 15 meters up the slope before succumbing to her injuries. She was trying to reach the road," Elena surmised, the tragic narrative taking shape. "To get help." "That's our working theory," Marshall agreed. "But there's more. We found this clutched in her hand." He produced an evidence bag containing a woman's wallet. Driver's license identifies her as Rebecca Larson, 34, from Meadow Springs. He extracted a second evidence bag containing a blood-stained piece of paper. This was found with her. It appears to be a handwritten note. Eleanor accepted the bag, studying the contents through the plastic. The paper had been torn from a small notebook, the handwriting shaky but determined. "My daughter Emma is still in the car. Please find her. Tell her Mommy loves her more than anything. Tell her I tried." The simple, desperate message hit Elena with unexpected force. Despite years of emergency response work, moments like this, glimpses into another human being's final thoughts, still pierced her professional armor. "She knew she wasn't going to make it," Elena said quietly. "Her last act was trying to help rescuers find her daughter." Marshall nodded solemnly. "Medical examiner estimates she survived several hours after the crash, despite catastrophic internal injuries. The fact she made it that far up the slope with her injuries." He paused, uncharacteristic emotion briefly visible on his features. "It defies medical explanation." Elena thought of the toddler, Emma, now receiving medical care just rooms away, blissfully unaware that her mother had died trying to save her. "Have we located next of kin?" "Working on it. Father isn't listed on the birth certificate according to DMV records. We're checking her phone contacts and emergency information." Their conversation was interrupted by a gentle knock. Dr. Patel entered, her clipboard tucked under one arm. "I thought you'd want an update," she said. "Emma is in remarkably good condition. Mild dehydration, minor bruising from the restraint harness, and hypothermia that's already responding to treatment. No fractures, no internal injuries. It's quite extraordinary given the circumstances. Children can be incredibly resilient," Marshall observed. Dr. Patel nodded. "Physically, yes, but there's something else you should know." She hesitated briefly. "She's asking for her mother. Not with words. Her verbal skills are limited to a few basic terms, but she keeps making a specific sign. Our child development specialist recognized it as a simplified sign language gesture for Mommy." Elena and Marshall exchanged glances. The weight of what lay ahead, telling a child too young to truly comprehend that her mother was gone, hanging heavily in the air. "There's one more thing," Dr. Patel continued. "She becomes agitated when we try to separate her from the stuffed elephant, but she keeps offering it to the door, then signing Mommy. It's as if she's trying to send the toy to her mother." The implication was heartbreaking. The child's last interaction with her mother might have included being given the stuffed animal for comfort, and now she was trying to return the gesture. "I'd like to request that my K9 partner be allowed to visit her," Elena said suddenly. Max was instrumental in finding her, and she responded positively to him at the scene. His presence might provide some comfort. Dr. Patel considered this unusual request. "We don't typically allow animals in pediatric care areas, but..." She glanced at her notes. Given her circumstances and excellent physical condition, I could authorize a brief visit as a therapeutic intervention. I'll need to clear it with administration. While the doctor made arrangements, Elena stepped outside to check on Max. The German Shepherd was waiting patiently with Officer Rodriguez, immediately alert when Elena approached. "How's our K9 hero doing?" she asked Rodriguez. "Perfect gentleman," Rodriguez replied, "though he keeps watching the doors like he's waiting for something. Hasn't taken his eyes off the entrance since you went inside." Elena knelt beside Max, checking him for any injuries that might have been overlooked in the chaos of the rescue operation. As she ran her hands along his mud-spattered coat, she noticed something peculiar. A small piece of fabric clutched in his mouth that he hadn't had before. "What's this, boy?" she asked, gently extracting the item. It was a tattered pink hair ribbon, the kind used for a child's ponytail. "Where did you get this?" Rodriguez looked confused. "He didn't have that when you left him with me. He must have picked it up somewhere in the ambulance bay." Elena examined the ribbon more carefully. Despite being muddy, it matched the color of the elastic bands in Emma's hair. "This belongs to the little girl," she realized. But how did Max get it? Before Rodriguez could respond, Dr. Patel returned. "We've received clearance for a brief visit, provided the K9 has all required certifications and health records." "He does," Elena confirmed. "All documentation is on file with the department." As they prepared to enter the pediatric area, Elena noticed Max's demeanor shift. His alert posture and intense focus returned, the same behavior he had displayed at the crash site. Something about this case continued to engage his trained instincts in a way that transcended standard operations. Emma's treatment room was decorated with colorful wall murals intended to make the clinical space less intimidating for young patients. The toddler sat propped up in a bed sized for her tiny frame, monitoring equipment beeping softly beside her. A female social worker from Child Protective Services sat nearby, documenting case notes while maintaining a reassuring presence. When Emma saw Elena, a flicker of recognition crossed her features. When she noticed Max, however, her reaction was immediate and dramatic. She reached out both arms, dropping her precious elephant for the first time since her rescue. "She remembers him," Dr. Patel observed quietly. Elena guided Max closer to the bed, maintaining control while allowing the child to see and touch him. The German Shepherd's behavior was impeccable, gentle, calm, and attentive as tiny fingers. Patted his head with surprising gentleness. "Animals often provide comfort during trauma," the social worker commented. "The unconditional acceptance can be therapeutic, especially when children are too young to process their experiences verbally." Emma reached for her elephant, pulling it close again before making the sign for mommy that Dr. Patel had described. Then, to everyone's surprise, she held the stuffed toy toward Max. "She's integrating him into her communication pattern," the social worker noted with interest. "She's trying to tell him about her mother." Max's response defied standard K9 training protocols. He gently took the edge of the stuffed animal in his mouth when offered, held it momentarily, then released it back to Emma. The interaction seemed almost conversational, a wordless exchange of shared understanding that transcended species barriers. Emma's next action stunned everyone in the room. She made the sign for mommy again, then pointed directly at the door, her small face suddenly animated with purpose. Eleanor looked from Emma to Max, an impossible thought forming. "Dr. Patel, you said Emma is in stable condition." "Yes, remarkably so. We're monitoring her primarily as a precaution at this point." "And the recovery operation at the crash site, is it still active?" Elena directed this question to Marshall, who had joined them in the doorway. "Yes, the technical team is still working on recovering Ms. Larson's body. The terrain and weather are complicating extraction. Max's attention had shifted completely to Emma, who continued pointing insistently toward the door while making the mommy sign with increasing urgency. "Commissioner," Elena said slowly, "I need to return to the crash site immediately." Marshall frowned. "Captain, your shift ended 3 hours ago. The recovery team has the situation under control." "Sir, I believe there's more to this situation than we've uncovered." Elena struggled to articulate her instinct without sounding irrational. Max's behavior, combined with the child's communication attempts, "I can't explain it properly, but I believe we need to expand the search perimeter." "Based on what evidence?" Marshall challenged. Though his tone lacked its usual dismissiveness, Elena held up the pink hair ribbon. "Max acquired this somewhere between the crash site and the hospital. It belongs to Emma, and now she's trying to tell us something about her mother." She gestured toward the toddler, who was becoming increasingly agitated. "Sir, I've been in emergency response for 18 years. Sometimes we need to trust patterns that don't fit our standard protocols." Marshall studied Emma's insistent pointing, then looked at Max, whose attention remained fixed on the child with unusual intensity. After a moment of consideration, his expression softened. "Your K9 has already proven conventional wisdom wrong once today," he conceded. "Take Rodriguez and return to the scene. I'll inform the recovery team to expect you." His voice dropped, so only Elena could hear. "Find whatever it is that has this child so concerned. She's lost enough today." As Elena prepared to leave, Emma became increasingly distressed. The social worker attempted to comfort her, but the toddler's agitation only increased when she realized Max was leaving. Dr. Patel made a quick assessment. "Her vitals are stable, but this level of emotional distress isn't good for her recovery." She made an unexpected decision. "What if we bring her?" A brief supervised visit to the recovery scene might actually help her process what's happened. From a psychological perspective, it could provide closure. "That's highly unorthodox," the social worker objected. "So is this entire situation?" Dr. Patel countered. "I can accompany her personally to monitor her condition. Sometimes we need to consider emotional healing alongside physical recovery." The decision required multiple approvals and careful preparation, but within 40 minutes, a remarkable procession departed the hospital. Emma secured in a medical transport carrier, accompanied by Dr. Patel, Eleanor, and Max, whose focused intensity had not wavered. As they drove toward the mountain road where the tragedy had begun, rain began falling again, as if nature itself was acknowledging the gravity of their mission. The crash site had transformed significantly since Eleanor and Max had first discovered the overturned vehicle hours earlier. What had been a solitary wreck in the wilderness was now the epicenter of a complex recovery operation. Portable generators hummed steadily, powering industrial floodlights that created harsh islands of illumination amid the rainy darkness. A command tent had been established at the upper edge of the ravine, where team leaders coordinated their efforts while sheltered from the persistent rainfall. Technical team leader Jackson met Elena's vehicle as it arrived, his expression reflecting surprise at her return with unexpected companions. His gaze moved from Elena to the medical transport, carrier visible in the back seat, then to Dr. Patel sitting beside it. "Captain Vasquez," he greeted her, rain dripping from the brim of his tactical helmet. "Commissioner Marshall radioed ahead about your return, but didn't mention you'd be bringing—" He hesitated, searching for appropriate terminology. "Additional personnel." Elena exited the vehicle, allowing Max to jump down beside her. The German shepherd immediately oriented himself toward the recovery scene, his body language alert but controlled. "Dr. Patel is accompanying Emma Larson under medical supervision. We believe she may be able to assist with the investigation." Jackson's skepticism was evident despite his professional demeanor. The child, "Captain, with all due respect, she's not even 2 years old, and bringing her to the site where her mother died seems questionable at best." Dr. Patel joined them, adjusting her rain protection gear. "I understand your concerns from both operational and ethical perspectives. However, Emma's behavior at the hospital indicated significant distress specifically associated with this location. In some cases, supervised exposure can help mitigate traumatic responses, particularly in pre-verbal children." Jackson appeared, unconvinced, but deferred to the medical authority. "The recovery operation is at a critical stage. We've stabilized the maternal victim's position, but extraction is complicated by the terrain. The technical assessment of the vehicle is still ongoing." "What have you discovered about Rebecca Larson's movements after the crash?" Eleanor asked, her focus remaining professional despite the emotional weight of the situation. Jackson led them to a covered area where a topographical map of the crash site had been laid out. Various markers indicated key locations in the developing narrative of the accident. "Based on blood evidence and disturbed ground, we've reconstructed her path after the crash," he explained, indicating a red line that traced movement from the vehicle up the slope. She extracted herself from the driver's side window, which was partially shattered on impact. Despite catastrophic injuries, she made it approximately 20 meters up the slope before collapsing at this position. His finger rested on a marker near where they had found her body. "Medical examiner estimates she survived between 2 and 4 hours post-crash," he continued. "Given her injuries, maintaining consciousness for that duration represents extraordinary determination." Elena studied the map carefully, looking for anomalies or unexplained elements. There's something not adding up. If her goal was reaching the road to signal for help, why move in this direction? She pointed to the path Rebecca had taken. "The highway is accessible via a more direct route here." She indicated an alternate path on the map. Jackson nodded. "We noted that discrepancy. The working theory is that in her injured state, disorientation affected her navigational decisions." Max, who had been scanning the recovery scene from their position, suddenly focused his attention on Dr. Patel's vehicle, where Emma remained secured in her carrier. His posture shifted subtly, a change that Elena had learned to recognize through years of partnership. "Bring Emma here," Elena requested, her intuition aligning with Max's behavioral cue. "Let's see how she responds to the map." Dr. Patel carefully extracted the carrier from the vehicle, positioning it so Emma could see the illuminated map while remaining protected from the rain. The toddler, who had been unusually quiet during the journey, immediately became animated. Her small hands reached toward the map, her focus intense despite her young age. "She recognizes something," Dr. Patel observed, her professional interest evident. Emma made the sign for Mommy again, then pointed insistently at a section of the map that diverged from both the highway approach and Rebecca's documented path. The area she indicated was approximately 50 meters northeast of where Rebecca's body had been recovered, a section that fell outside the established search perimeter. Jackson frowned. "That area hasn't been thoroughly searched. It's outside the probability zone for both vehicle debris and victim movement patterns." Elena watched as Max's attention fixed on the same area Emma had indicated. The correlation between the child's focus and her canine partner's interest could not be coincidental. "I want to search that section," she decided. "Emma is trying to tell us something, and Max seems to agree." "Based on what evidence?" Jackson challenged, though his tone lacked conviction. The day's events had already demonstrated the limitations of standard probability models when compared to Max's inexplicable accuracy. Before Elena could respond, Emma made another gesture, repeatedly moving her arms in a cradling motion while looking toward the area she had indicated on the map. Dr. Patel observed this carefully. "That's a nurturing gesture," she noted. "Common in toddlers her age when referring to babies, dolls, or beloved objects." Emma repeated the cradling motion, then clutched her stuffed elephant tightly before offering it again in the direction of the map. The implications crystallized for Eleanor. With sudden clarity, "Check Rebecca Larson's vehicle registration and insurance documents," she instructed Jackson urgently. "Was there any indication of a second child?" The technical team leader quickly consulted his tablet, scrolling through the information they had gathered. "Insurance documentation shows 2 dependent children listed, Emma Larson, 20 months, and..." His voice faltered as the significance of what he was reading registered. "Ethan Larson, 3 months. The revelation electrified the recovery scene. If a second child had been in the vehicle during the crash, the situation transformed from a tragic recovery operation to an urgent rescue mission where every minute counted. Rebecca wasn't trying to reach the road, Elena realized, the mother's actions now making perfect sense. She was moving toward her baby. Dr. Patel's medical training immediately engaged with this new information. If there was an infant in the car, she might have removed him from the vehicle, believing it was unsafe. With her injuries, she could have only carried one child at a time. She secured Emma in the car seat, knowing it was the safest place. For her, Elena continued, the tragic narrative becoming clearer, then tried to move the more vulnerable infant to safety or to a position where rescuers might find him. Jackson was already mobilizing his team, professionalism overriding any lingering skepticism. "All units, we have a potential second victim, infant male, approximately 3 months old. Expand search perimeter to quadrant Delta 7. He indicated the area Emma had identified. "Priority is life safety. Medical team on standby." Eleanor knelt beside Max, who was already straining toward the newly identified search area. "Find him, boy," she instructed softly, releasing his lead. "Find Ethan." Max moved with focused determination, navigating the treacherous terrain with practiced ease despite the rain and darkness. Elena followed closely, carrying a medical kit specifically designed for infant treatment. Dr. Patel remained at the command post with Emma, monitoring the toddler's responses while maintaining communication with the search team. The area Emma had indicated featured denser underbrush than the immediate crash site, making visual searching challenging even with powerful flashlights. Max worked systematically, his training evident in his methodical coverage pattern. Elena trusted his abilities completely, allowing him to guide their movement through the difficult terrain. 15 minutes into the search, Max's behavior changed dramatically. He froze, then gave a distinctive alert bark, different from his standard finding signal. This specialized alert, which Elena had heard only twice before in their partnership, indicated a critical find requiring immediate attention. "Over here," Elena called to the team members spread throughout the search area. "Max has something." She pushed through a thick stand of mountain laurel to reach Max's position. The German shepherd stood alerting beside what initially appeared to be a natural depression beneath a rocky overhang. As Elena directed her light into the space, the beam illuminated something that stopped her breath. A makeshift shelter created from a woman's jacket, carefully arranged to create a protected pocket against the elements. Elena approached cautiously, her heart pounding with both hope and dread. Gently lifting the edge of the jacket, she revealed a sight that would remain etched in her memory forever. A tiny infant, bundled in what appeared to be a torn thermal shirt, nestled in the most protected part of the natural alcove. "I've found him," she reported into her radio, her voice tight with emotion. "Infant male, location Gamma 47. Time seemed to suspend as Elena assessed the baby's condition. His skin was cool to the touch, but not dangerously cold. Most remarkably, he was alive, breathing in shallow but regular patterns. His eyes fluttered, open at her touch, unfocused but responsive. Medical team, immediate response. She continued into her radio. Living infant, approximately 3 months old, suffering exposure and potential hypothermia, responsive to stimuli. As the recovery team mobilized toward their location, Elena carefully extracted the infant from his improvised shelter, noting the extraordinary care with which Rebecca had created it despite her own catastrophic injuries. The jacket had been positioned to shed water away from the baby. The thermal shirt, torn from Rebecca's own clothing, provided critical insulation. Most remarkable was the position. The natural overhang offered protection from wind and direct rainfall, while the ground beneath featured a natural depression that trapped body heat. She knew exactly what she was doing, Elena whispered, cradling the infant as she initiated emergency warming protocols. Every decision was deliberate. The medical team arrived within minutes, bringing specialized equipment for infant treatment. As they worked to stabilize Ethan, Eleanor studied the surrounding area, reconstructing Rebecca's final journey. Blood traces on nearby rocks told the heartbreaking story. She had crawled the final distance, her strength failing, but her determination undiminished. Dr. Patel arrived with Emma, having determined the toddler should be present for her brother's recovery. As predicted, Emma's agitation immediately calmed upon seeing the medical team treating the infant. She made the cradling motion again, this time with clear recognition. "They're both going to be okay," Dr. Patel confirmed after consulting with the medical team. "Ethan is suffering moderate hypothermia and dehydration, but infants have surprising resilience in certain conditions. The fact that he was wrapped so effectively likely saved his life." As they prepared both children for transport to the hospital, Commissioner Marshall approached Elena. His earlier bureaucratic demeanor had been replaced by genuine emotion. The technical team completed their analysis of the vehicle, he informed her quietly. The infant's car seat was found empty but intact on the passenger side. Forensic evidence suggests Rebecca removed him immediately after the crash. The vehicle's fuel system was compromised. She would have smelled gasoline. She feared a fire, Elena concluded. So she removed Ethan first, created shelter for him in the safest location she could find, then returned for Emma. But the car seat had protected Emma effectively, Marshall continued. Rebecca may have realized moving her second child might cause more harm than leaving her secured. So she returned to Ethan, attempting to keep him warm and sheltered until help arrived. The full magnitude of Rebecca Larson's actions crystallized in that moment. A mother who, despite catastrophic injuries and knowing she might not survive, had made a series of perfect decisions that saved both her children's lives. The pediatric trauma specialist examining Ethan confirmed this assessment. The infant shows no signs of significant injury from the crash itself. The car seat did its job initially, and the mother's subsequent actions preserved his condition despite nearly 24 hours of exposure. Without the shelter she created, he couldn't have survived. As the medical team secured both children for transport, Max sat watching the proceedings with unusual attentiveness. His mission completed, he remained focused on the children, as if maintaining a protective vigil. "Your K9 did something today that all our technology and protocols couldn't," Marshall acknowledged, watching as Emma reached toward Max from her carrier. He found not just one miracle, but two. Elena knelt beside her partner, her hand resting on his mud-spattered coat. He understood something we didn't. Something about the connection between these children and their mother. She couldn't explain. The intuitive leaps that had led to this outcome, how Max had known to search beyond the designated area, how he had connected with Emma's unspoken concern for her brother, how he had tracked microscopic scent particles through rain and darkness. As they prepared to leave the site, Elena noticed something she had missed in her initial focus on Ethan, a small piece of paper tucked into the folds of Rebecca's jacket that had sheltered him. Carefully preserving it as evidence, she unfolded the note, written in the same determined handwriting as the previous message. "Ethan, my precious baby, if you're reading this, you survived, which means everything I did mattered. Know that your mother loved you enough to find you the safest place, even when there were no good options. Be brave, little one. Your sister needs you now." The note represented Rebecca's final act of motherhood, not just physical protection, but emotional legacy. Even facing her own mortality, she had thought to leave words that might someday help her son understand the extraordinary circumstances of his survival. As the rescue convoy departed the crash site, the rain finally began to subside. The first hints of dawn lightened the eastern sky, symbolically marking the transition from a night of desperate searching to a morning of improbable hope. Dr. Sophia Patel emerged from the treatment area, medical chart tucked under her arm, her composed demeanor betraying only hints of the emotional weight she carried after treating the Larson children. She spotted Elena immediately. The mud-splattered search and rescue captain hadn't left the hospital since returning with the infant 4 hours earlier. "Captain Vasquez," Dr. Patel called softly, approaching the waiting area. "You should really get some rest. You've been awake for nearly 30 hours. Elena straightened in her chair, fatigue evident in her posture despite her alertness. Max, equally exhausted, lifted his head from his paws, but remained in his designated waiting position beside her chair. "I'd like to hear about their condition first," Elena replied, her professional tone unable to mask her personal investment in the case. Dr. Patel nodded, understanding, and took the seat across from Elena. "Both children are remarkably stable given their ordeal. Emma has been upgraded from guarded to good condition. She's sleeping normally now, which is excellent for her recovery. Children her age often process trauma during sleep cycles." Elena nodded, having witnessed similar patterns during previous rescue operations involving young children. "And Ethan?" "His case was more concerning due to his age and the duration of exposure," Dr. Patel explained. "Infants his age have limited ability to thermoregulate. However, his core temperature has normalized and his hydration levels are improving with treatment. The pediatric neurologist found no signs of hypoxic injury, which was our primary concern. The medical assessment confirmed what Elena had already begun to recognize as extraordinary. Both children had survived conditions that statistically should have been fatal. "The shelter Rebecca created for Ethan," Elena began, still processing the implications of what they had discovered. The medical examiner estimated she had catastrophic internal injuries, yet she managed to create a micro-environment that preserved critical body heat and protected him from direct rainfall. Dr. Patel's professional composure softened. "In my 15 years of emergency medicine, I've witnessed many cases where parents performed seemingly impossible feats to protect their children. The human body has physical limitations, but maternal drive can sometimes transcend them temporarily." She paused, considering her next words carefully. Rebecca Larson should not have been physically capable of what she accomplished with her injuries. Yet the evidence is undeniable. Elena thought back to the scene they had reconstructed. A severely injured mother, creating optimal survival conditions for both children in different locations, prioritizing needs based on their relative vulnerability, all while suffering injuries that would have incapacitated most adults immediately. "Have you identified next of kin?" Dr. Patel asked, transitioning to the practical concerns that followed such cases. Rebecca's parents live in Arizona, Elena confirmed. They've been notified and are arranging emergency travel. Expected arrival is approximately 4 hours from now. Child Protective Services will maintain custody until they arrive. The conversation paused as a social worker approached, carrying 2 stuffed animals, a teddy bear and a plush rabbit, still in their retail packaging. "Gifts from the hospital staff," she explained. "We thought the children might appreciate having something new and comforting, especially Emma. The child development specialist suggested familiar textures might help with the transition." Elena nodded appreciation, but found herself thinking about the worn grey elephant that Emma had clutched so desperately throughout her ordeal. Manufactured comfort items, however well-intentioned, seemed hollow compared to the emotional significance of that tattered toy. The last connection to her mother. "Has Emma asked for her elephant?" Elena inquired, recalling how the toddler had used it as a communication tool during the search. "She has," the social worker confirmed. "We've cleaned it as best we could without damaging it further. She's holding it now while she sleeps." This small detail provided Elena unexpected relief. Preserving connections, however seemingly insignificant, could prove vital to children experiencing such profound loss. Commissioner Marshall arrived as the social worker departed, appearing surprisingly informal without his usual administrative armor. Like Elena, he showed signs of overnight work, wrinkled uniform, fatigue etched in his features, but maintained the composed demeanor expected of his position. "Captain," he greeted Elena, acknowledging Dr. Patel with a respectful nod. "I wanted to provide an update on the investigation before heading back to the scene." He took a seat, his posture revealing more humanity than Elena had previously witnessed in their professional relationship. The crash reconstruction team completed their preliminary analysis. Black ice on the curve likely caused the initial loss of control. The vehicle rolled multiple times before coming to rest against the pine. Under normal circumstances, our probability models would have been correct about the location. But Max knew better, Elena observed quietly, her hand moving unconsciously to rest on her partner's head. Marshall nodded, a concession that seemed to physically cost him as a data-driven administrator. "We've established a timeline from the vehicle's onboard computer. The crash occurred at approximately 9:17 p.m. during the heaviest rainfall. Based on the medical examiner's preliminary findings, Rebecca Larson survived the impact but sustained life-threatening injuries, including a severed femoral artery that would have ultimately proven fatal regardless of medical intervention." The clinical assessment felt jarringly sterile compared to the evidence of maternal heroism they had witnessed, but Elena recognized its necessity for the official record. "Despite these injuries," Marshall continued, "she extracted herself from the vehicle, removed her infant son, and created shelter for him approximately 50 meters from the crash site, in a location that provided optimal protection from the elements. She then returned to the vehicle, likely to extract her daughter, but found the car seat intact and determined Emma was safer remaining secured within it." Elena filled in the implied continuation. "So she returned to Ethan, using her remaining strength to keep him warm and protected as long as possible." "Correct." Marshall's professional demeanor cracked slightly. "She fashioned additional insulation from her own clothing, positioned herself to block wind exposure, and remained with him until she lost consciousness. Based on blood evidence, she made at least 2 trips between the children, checking on both until she physically couldn't continue." The room fell silent as they absorbed the profound implications of Rebecca's actions, a mother's final acts of love executed with tactical precision despite catastrophic injury and certain knowledge of her own impending death. There's something else, Marshall added, extracting a plastic evidence bag from his jacket. We found this in her vehicle. It appears to be a dash cam memory card. Technical services extracted the footage this morning. He offered his tablet to Eleanor, a video file already queued for viewing. I thought you should see this. It might help explain some of what happened last night. Eleanor accepted the tablet with a questioning glance, pressing play on the video file. The timestamp indicated footage from the previous evening, beginning approximately 2 minutes before the crash. The camera's view showed the rainy mountain road illuminated by headlights, wipers working at maximum speed against the downpour. Rebecca Larson's voice came through the speakers, singing a gentle lullaby, presumably to soothe her children during the challenging drive. The ordinary moment, a mother singing to her children while navigating difficult conditions, carried heartbreaking poignancy given what they now knew would follow. Suddenly, Rebecca's voice changed. "Oh no!" The camera captured her desperate attempt to maintain control as the vehicle hit black ice on a curve. The footage became chaotic. Blurred images, the sound of metal crushing, glass shattering, and Rebecca's voice calling out to her children as the vehicle rolled. Then stillness. The camera, miraculously intact and still functioning, showed a disorienting sideways view of the vehicle's interior. Rebecca's voice, now pain-filled but determined, came through clearly. "Emma, Ethan, Mommy's here. It's going to be okay. I'm going to get help." The audio captured her labored breathing, the unmistakable sounds of someone fighting through severe pain. Movement appeared at the edge of the frame, Rebecca checking her children, assessing their condition. "Emma, sweetie, you're okay. The car seat protected you. Ethan," her voice caught. "I need to get Ethan out first. I smell gasoline." The following minutes documented a mother's extraordinary courage. Rebecca extracting herself from the crushed driver's compartment, despite injuries that should have rendered movement impossible, carefully removing her infant son, speaking reassurances to both children continuously, despite her obviously deteriorating condition. "I'll be right back, Emma," she promised, her voice growing weaker. "Mommy's taking Ethan somewhere safe. Then I'll come back for you. Your seat is strong. It's protecting you. Be brave for Mommy." The audio captured her departure from the vehicle, leaving Emma secured in her car seat. For several minutes, only Emma's occasional whimpers were audible. Then Rebecca returned, her breathing now severely compromised. "Emma, sweetheart, listen to Mommy," she said, reaching into the back seat where the camera captured her hand, gently touching her daughter's face. "I can't get you out without hurting you. Your seat is keeping you safe. People will come looking for us when we don't arrive." She paused, fighting for breath. "I need to go back to your brother. He needs Mommy's warmth. Your elephant will keep you company until help comes." The camera showed her tucking the stuffed toy beside Emma in the car seat. "Remember, Mommy loves you, sweet girl, more than anything in this world." With those words, Rebecca left the vehicle for the final time. The dashcam continued recording for hours afterward, its battery outlasting the woman whose final journey it had partially documented. Occasional sounds of Emma's distress punctuated the otherwise silent recording, the toddler eventually falling into exhausted sleep, still secured in her car seat. The footage ended when the camera's battery finally depleted, approximately 4 hours after the crash. Likely around the same time, Rebecca Larson had succumbed to her injuries while sheltering her infant son. Eleanor returned the tablet to Marshall, finding herself unable to speak immediately. The raw courage captured in that footage, ordinary maternal love transformed into extraordinary heroism by circumstance, transcended her extensive experience with human behavior in crisis situations. "I've responded to hundreds of accidents during my career," Marshall said quietly, breaking the silence. "I've never witnessed anything like this. She made every correct decision for their survival with no rescue training, catastrophic injuries, and the knowledge she was likely dying. Dr. Patel, who had watched the footage alongside Eleanor, wiped away an uncharacteristic tear. As a mother myself, I can understand her instincts. As a physician, I'm in awe of her execution despite her condition. The conversation paused as a nurse approached from the treatment area. Dr. Patel, Emma is awake and asking for her elephant again. But there's something else. She keeps making the same gesture repeatedly and becoming frustrated when we don't. Understand? Dr. Patel rose immediately. I'll come assess. Captain Vasquez, would you join me? Emma seemed to respond positively to your presence earlier. Elena followed Dr. Patel to Emma's room, where the toddler sat upright in her hospital bed. The grey elephant clutched tightly in one arm, while her free hand made the now familiar cradling motion. When she spotted Elena, her gesturing became more insistent. She's trying to tell us something, the pediatric nurse observed. She's been doing this since she woke up. Elena approached the bed carefully, knowing that Emma might associate her with the traumatic rescue. Instead of fear, however, the toddler's expression showed recognition and what appeared to be urgent communication intent. She's asking about her brother, Elena realized. The cradling motion, she's asking where Ethan is. Dr. Patel considered this interpretation. That would make sense. She heard her mother's promise to protect both of them. She might be concerned, because she hasn't seen him since before the accident. Can we bring her to him, Elena suggested, or bring him here? Her sense of responsibility toward her brother might be heightened after everything that's happened. Dr. Patel nodded thoughtfully. Ethan is stable enough for a brief visit. It might actually benefit both of them. Maintaining family connections is crucial for emotional stability after trauma. Within minutes, a nurse wheeled Ethan's specialized infant bassinet into Emma's room. The moment Emma saw her brother, her agitation subsided. She made a soft cooing sound and reached toward him with her free hand, still clutching her elephant with the other. She recognizes him, Dr. Patel observed with evident relief. That's an excellent sign. Traumatic events can sometimes disrupt attachment patterns in very young children, but she clearly maintains her connection to him. Elena watched the interaction with profound awareness of what these children had survived, not just physically, but the invisible bonds of family that had somehow remained intact despite unimaginable circumstances. Their grandparents are flying in, she said quietly to Dr. Patel, but they're strangers to these children. Emma and Ethan only have each other now as familiar family. Dr. Patel nodded understanding. We'll recommend keeping them together during the transition. Their shared experience, even though Ethan is too young to consciously remember it, creates a connection that will be important for their recovery. As medical staff monitored the children's reunion, Max, who had followed Elena into the room, approached Emma's bed with careful, deliberate movements. The toddler noticed him immediately, her face lighting with recognition. She extended her hand toward him, a gesture of trust that carried remarkable significance given her recent trauma. She remembers how he found her, Dr. Patel noted. There's growing research on animal-assisted therapy for childhood trauma. Your canine partner may have inadvertently established a therapeutic connection during the rescue. Elena watched as Max sat beside Emma's bed, his posture relaxed yet attentive. The German Shepherd's behavioral training demonstrated remarkable adaptation to this unusual scenario, understanding intuitively the gentle presence needed with traumatized children. He found both of them when conventional methods failed, Elena said, the events of the past 24 hours still defying complete explanation. Somehow he knew to look beyond probability models and standard protocols. As Emma began drifting back to sleep, her hand still reaching toward Max, Eleanor reflected on the extraordinary chain of events that had connected them all. A mother's impossible courage, a dog's inexplicable certainty, and two children's remarkable will to survive against overwhelming odds. The impromptu case conference had assembled at Commissioner Marshall's request, bringing together the various agencies now involved in determining the Larson children's immediate future. Dr. Patel represented medical services alongside child development specialist Dr. Nadine Torres. Margaret Wilson from Child Protective Services presented the social welfare perspective, while hospital administration and legal counsel rounded out the assembled professionals. 4 hours had passed since the children's reunion. Emma had remained sleeping peacefully after seeing her brother, while Ethan continued receiving specialized neonatal care for his exposure-related conditions. Both children were officially stable, though their emotional recovery presented more complex challenges than their physical healing. The grandparents' flight lands at 2:15 p.m., Margaret Wilson reported, consulting her case notes. They'll be transported directly to the hospital. I've spoken with them extensively by phone to prepare them for what to expect. Commissioner. Marshall nodded acknowledgement. What's the standard protocol for custody transition in cases like this? Typically, we'd establish temporary emergency custody with family members pending formal arrangements, Wilson explained. The grandparents will need to initiate guardianship proceedings, but given the circumstances, the court will almost certainly expedite approval. Dr. Torres, a specialist in childhood trauma, interjected with a critical consideration. These children have experienced profound loss under extraordinary circumstances. Their transition to new caregivers requires specialized support beyond standard protocols. Their circumstances are certainly unique, Wilson acknowledged. We're prepared to implement enhanced transition services. Elena had remained largely silent during the procedural discussion, but found herself increasingly troubled by aspects of the conversation. The clinical approach to the children's future, while professionally appropriate, seemed disconnected from the profound human elements of their experience. After witnessing Rebecca Larson's extraordinary final acts and the children's remarkable survival, standard bureaucratic processes felt inadequate to honor what had occurred. "May I offer an observation?" Elena finally asked, drawing the room's attention. "These children survived because their mother made a series of perfect decisions under impossible circumstances. She prioritized their safety above everything, including her own survival. I believe we owe it to her memory to approach their care with the same level of commitment." The room fell silent, professional composure momentarily giving way to the emotional weight all had been carefully managing. Commissioner Marshall studied Elena with newfound respect, recognizing that her perspective transcended procedural considerations. "What specifically are you suggesting, Captain Vasquez?" he asked. "I'm concerned about Emma's psychological well-being during this transition," Elena explained. "She's developed specific attachments that have helped her cope with trauma, her stuffed elephant, her connection to her brother, and—" She hesitated briefly. "Her interaction with Max." Dr. Torres leaned forward with interest. "Your K9 partner?" "Yes, I observed their interaction earlier. It's quite remarkable." "Max found both children when conventional search parameters failed," Elena continued. "Emma has formed an association between him and safety. When she's in his presence, her anxiety visibly decreases." "Animal-assisted therapy has shown significant benefits for children experiencing trauma," Dr. Torres confirmed. "The research is particularly compelling for pre-verbal children who can't process their experiences through traditional counseling approaches." Elena had been formulating her thoughts throughout the morning, increasingly certain of what she needed to propose. "I'd like to request approval for Max to participate in Emma's transition process when her grandparents arrive. His presence might help bridge the gap between the trauma she's experienced and the new reality she's facing. The request was unprecedented. Canine units traditionally served operational functions rather than therapeutic roles. Elena could see various officials exchanging glances, evaluating the procedural barriers to such an arrangement. Commissioner Marshall surprised everyone by supporting the proposal. Captain Vasquez and her K9 partner have demonstrated exceptional judgment throughout this case. If she believes Max's presence would benefit Emma's transition, I'm inclined to authorize it. Dr. Patel nodded agreement. From a medical perspective, I've observed Emma's physiological responses when Max is present. Her vital signs stabilize, and her stress indicators decrease measurably. That kind of comfort can't be manufactured through standard protocols. The discussion continued, addressing logistical considerations and establishing parameters for the unprecedented arrangement. As the meeting concluded, most participants departed to prepare for the grandparents' arrival, leaving Elena alone with Commissioner Marshall. "That was an unexpected position for you to take, sir," Elena noted once they were alone. "Procedural exceptions aren't usually your preference." Marshall regarded her thoughtfully, seeming to weigh his response. 27 years in emergency services, Captain. I've responded to thousands of incidents, established countless protocols, and generally found that systems and procedures produce the most reliable outcomes. He paused, gazing out the window toward the mountains. But occasionally, we encounter situations that transcend our frameworks. Elena nodded understanding, having experienced similar realizations throughout her career. What happened on that mountain wasn't just a tragic accident with a miraculous outcome, Marshall continued. It was a demonstration of something our protocols and probability models can't fully account for: the extraordinary capacity of both humans and animals to transcend normal limitations when it truly matters. His uncharacteristically philosophical perspective revealed how deeply the case had affected him. Like Elena, he had been fundamentally changed by witnessing Rebecca Larson's final acts of motherhood and Max's inexplicable certainty about the children's locations. "I've built my career on evidence-based approaches," Marshall acknowledged, "and the evidence here suggests that your K9 partner understood something about those children that our entire emergency response system missed. Sometimes wisdom means recognizing when to step beyond established parameters." Elena appreciated his candor, recognizing the significant shift in perspective it represented for someone in his position. "Thank you, sir." As they prepared to leave the conference room, Marshall had one more question. "The department will want a detailed explanation of how Max located both children outside established search parameters. What will you include in your report?" The question highlighted the tension between observable facts and inexplicable elements that had characterized the entire case. Elena considered her response carefully. "I'll document the observable indicators, his behavioral changes, alert patterns, and tracking methodology," she replied. "But some aspects may defy conventional explanation. Max seemed to understand connections between the children and their mother that transcended standard training parameters." Marshall nodded, accepting the inherent mystery without further challenge. "Sometimes, the most important things we learn can't be fully captured in official reports." As they exited the conference room, Elena's phone alerted her to a message from Dr. Patel. "Emma is awake and asking for Max. Are you available?" Elena showed the message to Marshall, who immediately nodded approval. "Go. I'll handle the preparations for the grandparents' arrival." Minutes later, Elena and Max entered Emma's hospital room, where the toddler sat upright in her bed, clutching her elephant while a child life specialist attempted to engage her with age-appropriate activities. Emma's expression transformed immediately upon seeing Max, her first genuine smile since the rescue. "She's been asking for Doggy for the past 20 minutes. the specialist explained, relief evident in her voice. This is the most animated she's been all morning. Eleanor guided Max to a position beside Emma's bed, where the toddler could easily reach him. Max's behavior remained exemplary, gentle, patient, and attentive, as small fingers patted his head with increasing confidence. "She seems calmer with him," Eleanor observed. "It's more than that," the specialist noted, observing their interaction closely. "Watch how she's positioning her elephant. She wants Max to protect it too. She's recreating security patterns, which is extraordinarily advanced coping behavior for her age." Emma had indeed placed her stuffed elephant against Max's side, patting both with alternating hands, as if ensuring they remained connected. The simple gesture carried profound significance. She was establishing continuity between her past security, the elephant from her mother, and her present security, the dog who had found her. "Her psychological resilience is remarkable," the specialist continued. "Children her age typically can't create symbolic connections like this. She's found a way to preserve her attachment to her mother while forming new safety associations." As they observed Emma's interaction with Max, Eleanor contemplated the approaching transition to her grandparents' care. The toddler had already demonstrated extraordinary adaptive capacity, but the coming hours would bring new challenges as strangers, even loving relatives, entered her disrupted world. "Would it be possible to record Max's interaction with Emma?" Elena suggested. "Something her grandparents could use after we're no longer directly involved. It might help them understand the comfort he provides." The specialist immediately recognized the value of this approach. "Excellent idea. I'll arrange for our child development team to document this interaction. It could provide valuable continuity during the transition." As they discussed implementation details, a nurse entered with Ethan in a portable bassinet. Dr. Patel thought it might be beneficial for Emma to spend time with her brother before the grandparents arrive. Helps establish normal sibling patterns. Emma's reaction to her brother's arrival was immediate and touching. She made the same cooing sound they had observed earlier, reaching toward the bassinet while maintaining contact with both her elephant and Max, expanding her circle of security to include her brother. The nurse positioned the bassinet where Emma could see Ethan clearly. "Their connection seems unusually strong for children this young," she observed. "Typically, toddlers show more jealousy or indifference toward infants, especially in stressful situations. Shared trauma can accelerate attachment patterns," the child life specialist explained. Emma heard her mother's promise to protect both of them. She's internalized that responsibility in her own way. As they watched Emma divide her attention between Max and Ethan, Eleanor found herself deeply moved by the resilience displayed by these young siblings. Despite experiencing a tragedy that would devastate most adults, they had found ways to preserve connections and establish new security. The specialist's phone chimed with a message alert. "The grandparents have landed. They'll be here within the hour." This update created a decision point for Elena. Standard procedure would have her complete her documentation and withdraw from the case, allowing family reunification to proceed through proper channels. Yet everything about this situation had transcended standard procedures from the moment Max had insisted on searching beyond designated parameters. "I'd like to remain for the initial meeting," Elena stated, making her decision, "to help facilitate Max's introduction to the grandparents and explain his significance to Emma's sense of security." The specialist nodded agreement. Their daughter made extraordinary decisions to save these children. The least we can do is ensure the transition honors her efforts by providing every possible support. As they prepared for the grandparents' arrival, Emma fell asleep with one hand resting on Max's head and the other holding her elephant. Her expression reflected peace that had seemed impossible just hours earlier. Elena watched the sleeping child, reflecting on the chain of events that had connected them. What had begun as a standard search and rescue operation had transformed into something that defied conventional categories, a demonstration of human courage, animal intuition, and the profound bonds that sustain us through our darkest moments. When Emma's grandparents arrived, they would inherit not just the care of two remarkable children, but the legacy of their daughter's final, extraordinary acts of love. Elena had decided that ensuring they understood this legacy, including Max's role in preserving it, was a responsibility that transcended departmental boundaries and standard protocols. In that quiet hospital room, watching a toddler sleep with her hand resting on a German shepherd's head, Elena recognized that some commitments demand we move beyond our defined roles to honor something deeper and more fundamental than procedural correctness. The Valley County Medical Center lobby served as the intersection of countless human stories, joyful births, difficult diagnoses, miraculous recoveries, and heartbreaking losses all flowed through this transitional space. Elena had visited hundreds of hospitals throughout her career, but rarely had she felt such personal investment in what would transpire within one. She had used the waiting time to prepare herself professionally, reviewing the case documentation and organizing her thoughts on what information would be most helpful to convey to the Larson children's grandparents. Commissioner Marshall had authorized her continued involvement through the initial transition phase, recognizing the unique circumstances warranted deviation from standard departmental handoff procedures. Max remained in a perfect downstay position, beside her chair, his training evident in his calm demeanor despite the busy environment. Occasionally, his eyes tracked movement at the entrance doors, as if he too anticipated the arrival that would shape the next chapter of this extraordinary case. Hospital Security Director James Chen approached, clipboard in hand. "Captain Vasquez, the Larsons have arrived. They're being escorted from the parking area now." Elena nodded appreciation. "Thank you for the update. Dr. Patel still plans to meet with them first?" "Yes," Chen confirmed. "The medical briefing will take place in the family consultation room. Then they'll be introduced to the children. Dr. Patel suggested you join them for the initial medical overview, given your unique perspective on the rescue circumstances." Elena rose, smoothing her uniform jacket. She had taken time to change into a fresh uniform during the waiting period, recognizing the importance of projecting professional competence during this critical interaction. Max immediately stood at a subtle hand signal, remaining perfectly positioned at her side. "We'll head to the consultation room now," she decided. Better to be settled before they arrive. The family consultation room had been thoughtfully designed to balance clinical necessity with human comfort. Soft lighting, comfortable seating, and subtle nature photography created an environment that acknowledged the emotional weight of difficult conversations while maintaining professional functionality. Dr. Patel was already present, reviewing medical charts with pediatric specialist Dr. Abrams, who had assumed primary care responsibility for both children. They looked up as Elena and Max entered. "Perfect timing," Dr. Patel noted. "The grandparents just cleared security. Hospital liaison is bringing them now." Elena positioned herself near the back of the room, allowing the medical team to take the lead while remaining available to provide the rescue perspective as needed. Max settled into a perfect sit-stay beside her chair, his presence noticeable but not dominating the space. The door opened to admit an older couple, accompanied by the hospital's family liaison. Robert and Catherine Larson carried the unmistakable look of people who had been awake for more than 24 hours, their faces etched with grief, anxiety, and the particular exhaustion that comes from receiving life-changing news while thousands of miles from home. Robert Larson, his silver hair rumpled from travel and stress, carried himself with the careful composure of someone forcing functionality through overwhelming emotion. Catherine's red-rimmed eyes betrayed recent tears, though her expression reflected determined focus on the immediate needs at hand. Both appeared to be in their early 60s, dressed in hastily assembled travel clothes that suggested their departure from Arizona had been executed with minimal preparation time. Dr. Patel stepped forward immediately, extending her hand. "Mr. and Mrs. Larson, I'm Dr. Sophia Patel, the emergency physician who has been overseeing your grandchildren's care. This is Dr. Abrams, our pediatric specialist, and Captain Vasquez from Valley County Search and Rescue, who located Emma and Ethan." Catherine Larson's eyes moved immediately to Elena, 1,000 unspoken questions visible in her expression. "You found them?" Her voice carried the slight tremor of emotional control stretched to its limit. Elena stepped forward, maintaining professional composure while acknowledging the human significance of the moment. "My canine partner, Max, was instrumental in locating both children," she explained, nodding toward the German shepherd who remained perfectly positioned beside her chair. "We worked with a highly skilled technical rescue team to bring them to safety." Robert Larson studied Max with unexpected interest, momentarily distracted from the overwhelming circumstances. "The dog found them. How? We were told the car wasn't visible from the road." "Perhaps we should begin with the children's current medical status," Dr. Patel suggested gently, recognizing the need to prioritize immediate concerns before addressing the rescue details. "Then Captain Vasquez can explain the circumstances of their recovery." The Larsons nodded agreement, though Catherine's gaze lingered on Max with growing curiosity. They took the offered seats as Dr. Patel began the medical briefing, explaining both children's conditions with compassionate thoroughness. "Emma is in remarkably good physical condition," Dr. Patel explained. "The car seat protected her during the accident itself. She's experiencing mild dehydration and minor contusions from the restraint harness, but no serious injuries. Ethan's condition was initially more concerning due to his age and exposure to cold temperatures, but he's responding excellently to treatment. His core temperature has normalized, and all neurological assessments show normal function." "How?" Catherine asked, the single word carrying complex layers of disbelief, gratitude, and grief. "The police told us Rebecca's injuries were—" She couldn't complete the sentence, the reality of her daughter's death still too raw to articulate. Dr. Abrams addressed the medical aspects of this question. Both children benefited from what we can only describe as perfect protective decisions. Emma remained secured in her car seat, which provided both impact protection during the crash and crucial stability afterward. Ethan was moved to a location that maximized natural shelter while minimizing exposure. "Your daughter made extraordinary choices under impossible circumstances," Elena added, recognizing the parents' need to understand their child's final acts. "Every decision she made prioritized Emma and Ethan's survival, and she executed those decisions with remarkable effectiveness despite catastrophic injuries." Robert's composure faltered momentarily. "That sounds like Becca. She was always—" Then he paused, struggling with the transition to past tense. "Always the one who stayed calm in emergencies." "We recovered video from the vehicle's dash cam," Elena said carefully, watching their reactions to gauge their readiness for this information. "It documented your daughter's actions immediately following the accident. When you're ready, that footage is available to you. It shows her remarkable courage and clarity of thought." Catherine nodded, tears flowing freely now. "We'd like to see it, not today, but soon. It's important to us to understand exactly what happened." "Of course," Elena assured them. "Everything has been preserved and will be available whenever you feel prepared." Dr. Patel gently redirected the conversation to immediate concerns. Emma has been asking to see her brother regularly, which shows remarkable attachment awareness for a child her age. We've been facilitating supervised interactions to maintain that sibling connection. She's also formed specific attachments to comfort objects that have helped her process the trauma. Her elephant, Catherine said immediately. Unexpected recognition. In her voice, grey with a pink ribbon, we gave it to her on her first birthday. The specific knowledge surprised everyone in the room. Dr. Patel nodded confirmation. Yes, that's the one. She's been holding it continuously since the rescue. You recognize it? Catherine nodded, fresh emotion crossing her features. Rebecca sent us pictures of Emma with it just last week. She called it Ellie and wouldn't sleep without it. This small connection to normal life before the tragedy seemed to ground the grandparents, providing a thread of continuity amid overwhelming disruption. Robert reached for his wife's hand, their fingers interlocking in practiced comfort. There's something else you should know about Emma's adjustment, Dr. Patel continued carefully. She's formed a strong positive association with Captain Vasquez's canine partner. Both grandparents looked toward Max with renewed interest. Catherine's expression reflected confusion. With the dog? How? Max was directly involved in locating both children, Elena explained. He found Emma first, then later led us to Ethan's location. Since then, Emma has demonstrated significant stress reduction when he's present. Child development specialists believe this represents an important coping mechanism for her. Dr. Abrams expanded on the psychological aspects. Children Emma's age process trauma differently than adults. They form attachments to elements that represent safety during frightening experiences. Max represents security and rescue to her, which has become an important part of her initial coping strategy. Robert studied the German Shepherd with newfound understanding. You're saying the dog is helping her feel safe? Precisely, Dr. Abrams confirmed. Her vital signs stabilized noticeably in his presence. She's even integrated her stuffed elephant into her interaction with him, creating a bridge between her previous security attachments and her new circumstances. Catherine's expression softened as she processed this information. She always loved animals. Rebecca was planning to get her a puppy when she turned 3. The mention of these future plans that would never materialize brought fresh grief to her features. Elena recognized an opening to address what had become increasingly clear throughout the day, Max's unprecedented role in the children's ongoing transition. With your permission, I'd like to facilitate a supported introduction between you and Emma, with Max present. His familiar presence might help ease her anxiety about meeting new people, even family members she hasn't seen recently. The grandparents exchanged glances, silently communicating in the way long-married couples often do. Robert voiced their shared concern. We don't want to frighten her. She's been through so much already. That's precisely why we're suggesting this approach, Dr. Patel explained. Trauma-informed care means utilizing whatever resources help the child feel secure during transitions. Max has proven remarkably effective in that capacity. Catherine studied Elena and Max with new consideration. You found both our grandchildren when no one else could, and now you're helping them heal. We're grateful beyond words. Elena maintained professional composure while acknowledging the personal impact. Your daughter's actions were extraordinary. Helping her children through this transition honors her courage. The conversation paused as a nurse entered with an update. Emma is awake and asking for her brother again. We've brought Ethan to her room for their regular interaction time. This development created a natural opportunity for the next step. Dr. Patel turned to the Larsons. Would you like to meet your grandchildren now? We can approach this gradually, with Captain Vasquez and Max present initially to help Emma feel secure. The grandparents nodded, emotion temporarily rendering them speechless. As they rose to follow Dr. Patel, Catherine paused beside Eleanor. "May I ask you something?" "Of course," Eleanor replied. "The police told us the car wasn't visible from the road, that the search areas were focused elsewhere. How did you know where to look? How did your dog find them when everything else failed?" The question returned Elena to the central mystery of the entire case, Max's inexplicable certainty about locations that defied probability models and standard search parameters. She considered her response carefully, balancing professional explanation with the honest acknowledgement of elements that transcended conventional understanding. Max demonstrated unusual behavioral indicators from the beginning of the search operation, she explained. He insisted on areas outside our assigned parameters with a determination I've never witnessed in our partnership. When I finally followed his lead, he took us directly to Emma, then later to Ethan. Catherine processed this information quietly, before asking, "Do you believe in connections that go beyond what we can explain, things that science doesn't quite capture?" The question would have seemed unusual in most professional contexts, but given what they had all witnessed throughout this case, it felt perfectly appropriate. Elena thought of Max's behavior, Rebecca's impossible journey between her children, and the siblings' remarkable survival against overwhelming odds. "I believe that when it truly matters, when lives hang in the balance and ordinary limitations should prevent success, something extraordinary can emerge," Eleanor replied carefully. "Whether we call it intuition, connection, or something else entirely, I've witnessed it in action during this case." Catherine nodded, seeming satisfied with this answer. "Then we have something in common already. Rebecca always said that being a mother taught her there are bonds that defy explanation." She glanced toward the room where her grandchildren waited. "I think she proved that beyond any doubt." As they moved toward Emma's room, Elena felt the weight of the transitional moment approaching. The children's future would be shaped by how successfully they navigated these initial interactions, establishing security and continuity amid profound loss. Max walked perfectly beside her, his trained discipline never wavering despite the emotional complexity of the environment. Yet Elena had come to recognize something beyond his training at work throughout this case, an intuitive understanding that transcended conventional canine capabilities. The hospital corridor stretched before them, leading toward a room where two children who had survived against impossible odds now waited to meet grandparents who would become their new guardians. The path forward would hold challenges for all involved, but in this moment, Elena felt profound certainty that connections both visible and invisible would guide them through. Emma's emotional state has been remarkably stable considering her experience, Dr. Patel explained to the grandparents, her voice quiet but clear. However, meeting new people, even family, may trigger anxiety after trauma. We'll approach this carefully, introducing familiar elements first. Catherine Larson nodded, visibly gathering her composure. Her hands trembled slightly as she gripped her husband's arm, the emotional weight of meeting her grandchildren under such tragic circumstances momentarily overwhelming her practiced restraint. "She won't remember us," Robert said softly. "It's been almost a year since we saw her in person, and she was so little then." "Children often retain impressions, even when concrete memories haven't formed," Dr. Patel assured them. "And you have an advantage. You recognize her stuffed elephant. That shared knowledge creates an immediate connection point." Eleanor observed the grandparents with professional assessment, noting their evident love alongside their apprehension. Despite their grief and exhaustion, they remained focused on the children's needs rather than their own emotional turmoil, a quality that spoke well of their capacity to provide the stability Emma and Ethan would require. Captain Vasquez, and Max will enter first, Dr. Patel continued, outlining their approach. Once Emma appears comfortable, we'll introduce you gradually. Remember that children this age often need time to adjust to new people, especially after experiencing significant disruption. Elena knelt beside Max, making eye contact with her canine partner. "Easy, boy," she murmured, an unnecessary command. Given his perfect behavior, but a ritual that centered them both before significant interactions. Max's intelligent gaze met hers with what appeared to be understanding beyond his training parameters. With a subtle hand signal, Elena directed Max forward, entering Emma's room with measured steps. The toddler looked up immediately, her solemn expression transforming with recognition. She reached her small hand toward Max, still clutching her elephant with her other arm. "Doggy," she said clearly, one of the few words she had spoken since the rescue. "That's right, Emma," Elena affirmed, approaching the bed slowly. "Max came to see you again. Is that okay?" Emma nodded, her attention fixed on the German Shepherd as he positioned himself perfectly beside her bed, close enough for her to touch but maintaining appropriate distance. The child development specialist seated nearby nodded approval at the interaction. "Emma has been doing very well this morning," the specialist noted quietly. "She's been showing protective behaviors toward Ethan, offering him her elephant periodically, then taking it back. It's an advanced sharing pattern for her developmental stage." Elena observed this relationship dynamic with appreciation for its significance. Despite everything Emma had endured, her connection to her brother remained intact, a resilience that defied conventional expectations for traumatized toddlers. "Emma," Elena said gently, "I brought some people who have been very worried about you and Ethan. They love you very much and have traveled a long way to see you. Would it be okay if they come in?" The toddler's expression grew cautious, her grip tightening on her elephant as she processed this information. She looked to Max, as if seeking confirmation that these new people could be trusted. Elena recognized the perfect opening. "They know all about Ellie," she said, using the elephant's name Catherine had mentioned earlier. This unexpected connection point visibly registered with Emma. She held up her stuffed animal with newfound interest. "Ellie," she repeated, the familiar name, providing a thread of continuity between her past and present. Elena nodded toward the doorway, signaling Dr. Patel to bring the grandparents in. Catherine entered first, Robert a half step behind, both moving with careful restraint despite their evident emotion. "Hello, Emma," Catherine said, her voice warm but gentle. "I remember when we gave Ellie to you on your first birthday. You loved her right away." Something shifted in Emma's expression, not quite recognition, but a response to the authentic connection Catherine offered. The grandmother had instinctively identified the perfect approach, leading with knowledge that established her as someone from Emma's life before the trauma. "You wore a yellow dress," Catherine continued, moving slowly closer, "and you had 2 little ponytails with yellow ribbons. Your mommy took pictures of you hugging Ellie for the first time." Emma studied her grandmother with growing interest, the specific details creating connections her young mind could process. "Mommy," she said, the word carrying weight beyond its simplicity. Catherine's composure wavered briefly, but she maintained her gentle focus on Emma. "Yes, sweetheart. Your mommy loved you so much. She sent us pictures of you and Ellie every week." Robert remained slightly behind his wife, recognizing Emma's need to process one new person at a time. His attention divided between his granddaughter and the infant in the bassinet, his expression reflecting wonder amid grief. "May I sit with you?" Catherine asked Emma, indicating the edge of the bed. Emma considered this request, her gaze moving from Catherine to Max, as if checking that his continued presence confirmed safety. The German Shepherd remained perfectly positioned beside the bed, his calm demeanor providing the reassurance Emma sought. After a moment's consideration, Emma nodded, creating space beside her while maintaining her grip on her elephant. As Catherine carefully sat on the edge of the hospital bed, Emma did something that brought tears to everyone's eyes. She held out her precious elephant, offering it to her grandmother in a gesture of profound trust. "Thank you, sweet girl," Catherine said, her voice thick with emotion. She touched the stuffed animal gently, but didn't take it from Emma's grasp. "Ellie has been taking good care of you, hasn't she?" Emma nodded, then surprised everyone by adding, "and baby," pointing toward Ethan's bassinet. Robert approached then, moving to stand beside the bassinet containing his infant grandson. "Hello, Ethan," he said softly, his weathered hand gently touching the baby's. "We've been so worried about both of you." The initial connection established, Dr. Patel guided the interaction toward building familiarity. "Emma has been a wonderful big sister," she explained to the grandparents. "She reminds us when it's time for Ethan's visits and watches him very carefully. Just like your mommy used to do with her little brother," Catherine told Emma. "She was a wonderful big sister too." This parallel created another thread of connection, family patterns that transcended the immediate tragedy. Emma seemed to absorb this information, processing it in whatever way her young mind could manage. The child development specialist observed the interaction with professional assessment. "This is going remarkably well," she noted quietly to Elena. "Emma's body language shows increasing comfort, and she's demonstrating prosocial behaviors rather than withdrawal." Elena watched as the newly forming family unit began establishing their connections, each small interaction building foundation for the relationships that would sustain these children through their healing journey. Max remained vigilant beside Emma's bed, his presence a constant that bridged the gap between trauma and recovery. After several minutes of gentle interaction, Emma did something that stunned everyone present. She pointed to Max, then to her grandparents, making a clear associative gesture. "Safe," she said distinctly, another word she hadn't used since the rescue. The child development specialist leaned forward with evident interest. "That's a sophisticated, emotional connection. She's transferring the safety association from Max to her grandparents." Catherine looked to Elena with tear-filled eyes. "She trusts us because she trusts your dog," she said wonderingly. "How is that possible after everything she's been through?" Elena considered this question carefully, aware that her answer carried significance beyond professional explanation. "Children have an extraordinary capacity to recognize authentic care," she replied. "Max found Emma when she needed help most. Now she's recognizing that you're here for the same reason, to protect and care for her." As the grandparents continued building rapport with Emma, Robert eventually moved to the bassinet, focusing on Ethan. The infant was awake but calm, his eyes tracking movement with the developing awareness typical of his age. "May I hold him?" Robert asked Dr. Patel, his voice revealing the depth of his need to connect with this tiny survivor. After receiving approval, Robert carefully lifted his grandson from the bassinet, his experienced hands supporting the infant's head with grandfatherly precision. As he cradled Ethan against his chest, the baby settled immediately, somehow recognizing the safety of family despite never having met his grandfather before. "He knows you," Catherine observed, still seated beside Emma, who had begun showing her grandmother drawings made during her hospital stay. "He knows he's safe," Robert corrected gently, his eyes never leaving his grandson's face. "That's what matters most right now." Elena watched this tableau of family resilience with profound appreciation for what was unfolding. Despite unimaginable tragedy, connections were forming that would sustain these children through the difficult journey ahead. Rebecca Larson's extraordinary final acts had given her children not just physical survival, but the opportunity to experience the extension of her love through their grandparents. Commissioner Marshall arrived at the doorway, catching Elena's attention with a subtle gesture. She excused herself, joining him in the corridor where they could speak privately. "How's it going?" he asked, his earlier administrative demeanor now tempered with genuine concern. "Remarkably well," Elena reported. "Emma is responding positively to her grandparents. The initial connection has been established more smoothly than anyone anticipated." Marshall nodded, relief evident in his expression. "The department has authorized continued canine support through the transition phase," he informed her. "The hospital administrative board approved a specialized therapy dog designation for Max during this case, allowing him regular access during the children's recovery period. This unprecedented arrangement reflected how deeply the Larson case had affected everyone involved. Standard protocols had given way to recognition that this situation demanded innovative approaches. "The technical assessment of the vehicle and crash site is complete," Marshall continued, transitioning to operational matters. "I thought you should know. The final report confirms everything we pieced together about Rebecca Larson's actions. After the crash, the forensic evidence aligns perfectly with the timeline we established." "Does that include the inexplicable elements?" Elena asked. "The physical impossibility of what she accomplished with her injuries?" Marshall's expression reflected the same wonder that had characterized this case from the beginning. The medical examiner confirmed that her femoral artery was completely severed. Standard medical understanding suggests she should have lost consciousness within minutes and died shortly thereafter. Yet she survived long enough to save both her children, Elena completed the thought, creating perfect survival conditions for each of them based on their specific needs. Marshall nodded, professional detachment momentarily abandoned. "I've seen parents perform remarkable feats to protect their children, but nothing that defies medical explanation to this degree. The ME called it medically unprecedented." There, conversation paused as Catherine appeared in the doorway, her expression reflecting cautious optimism. "Emma is asking for Max again," she explained, "but she's also asking if you can stay, Captain Vasquez. She seems to associate you and Max as a unit." Eleanor looked to Marshall, who immediately nodded approval. "Of course. We've authorized your continued involvement through the transition phase." As they returned to Emma's room, Elena observed how the environment had transformed in just the short time she'd been absent. Robert sat in a rocking chair, expertly feeding Ethan with a bottle provided by the nursing staff. Catherine had moved to sit more fully on Emma's bed, looking through a photo album she had brought in her carry-on luggage. Pictures of Rebecca as a child, Emma as a baby, family moments that created visual connections to their shared history. Most remarkably, Emma's demeanor had continued evolving from cautious acceptance to active engagement. She pointed to pictures with interest, occasionally offering single-word comments or questions. When she spotted Eleanor and Max returning, she patted the bed on her other side, clearly inviting them to join the expanding circle of connection. As Max resumed his position beside Emma's bed and Elena took the offered seat, the toddler did something unexpected. She looked between her grandmother and Elena, then deliberately placed her elephant where both could touch it, creating a physical bridge between her past and present protectors. The child development specialist observed this with evident amazement. "That's extraordinary symbolic thinking," she noted quietly. "She's actively creating continuity between her attachment figures." In that moment, watching Emma begin building connections that would sustain her through healing, Elena recognized something profound about human resilience. Despite unimaginable trauma, this young child was actively participating in her own recovery, finding ways to preserve essential connections while creating space for new ones. Max remained perfectly positioned beside the bed, his trained vigilance never wavering. Yet Elena had come to recognize something beyond training in his behavior throughout this remarkable case, an intuitive understanding of human need that transcended conventional explanation. As the newly forming family unit continued, strengthening their connections, Elena reflected on the extraordinary chain of events that had brought them to this moment. A mother's impossible courage, a dog's inexplicable certainty, and now a family's determination to honor both through loving care of the children who had survived against overwhelming odds. Up next, you've got two more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any upload from us.